Have you ever noticed that history has a way of repeating itself, especially when it comes to money and banks? Think about it. The last time banks made a certain move, everything flipped upside down. Entire families lost their homes, companies went bankrupt overnight, and people who thought they were safe suddenly realized they were standing on quicksand. Now here's the question I want you to think about. What if banks are doing the same thing again right now? What if the signals are already here, quietly flashing in the background, while most people are distracted scrolling their phones? Would you even notice before it was too late? Here's the scary part. It's already happening again. In 2025, banks are starting to pull back. They're not as generous with loans as they were just a couple of years ago. According to official reports, more and more banks are tightening their lending standards, which means it's getting harder for businesses and even regular families to borrow money. And if you've been around long enough, you know what that means. Because the last time banks did this, the economy flipped on its head. But stay until the end, because I'm going to give you a step-by-step strategy on how to survive what's happening. Because it's much more serious than you think, and it might already be too late. Now let's break this down in a way that anyone can understand. The economy, at its core, runs on spending. The more you spend, the more someone else earns. You buy a coffee, that's income for the coffee shop. You pay for a haircut, that's income for the barber. It's like a giant circle where your money keeps moving, feeding different parts of the system. But here's the twist most people don't realise. Our system isn't just based on money, it's based on credit. Think about this. If you have $100 in your bank account, you can only spend $100. That seems obvious. But in reality, you can probably spend a lot more because you've got a credit card. Maybe that credit card allows you to spend $500 or even $2,000, money you don't actually have but are allowed to use. And when you swipe that card, you're not just boosting your own spending power, you're boosting the economy. Businesses get more sales, they hire more workers, wages go up and stock prices climb. All thanks to credit. Sounds great, right? Almost too great, and that's the problem, because there's always a catch. Eventually people max out. They borrow too much. They buy cars they can't afford, houses they have no business living in, vacations they shouldn't be taking. And at some point the banks realise, wait a second, not everyone can pay this money back. That's when they slam the brakes. They start denying loans. They raise the bar for who gets approved. And the instant they do this, the fuel that drives the economy, credit, starts to dry up. And when credit dries up, spending slows. When spending slows, everything starts to crack. The only way to save yourself in this horrible situation is not to borrow from banks by earning more. And you can do this thanks to my free Telegram community with a link in the description, where I will explain how to open your faceless YouTube channel from zero. But I'll tell you more about it later. Let me give you a clear example. Back in the early 2000s, things looked amazing. Almost anyone could get a loan. I'm not exaggerating. Mortgage companies were handing out loans left and right, sometimes without even verifying if you had a steady income. If you had a pulse, you had a loan. And because credit was flowing so easily, people were buying homes like crazy. Prices skyrocketed, lenders got rich, real estate agents got rich, and even regular families saw their home values shoot up. Everyone thought they were on the fast track to wealth. But here's the ugly truth. Banks and lenders didn't really care whether you could afford to pay those loans back. They'd just package them up, sell them to someone else, and pocket the fees. It was a game, and as long as new loans kept flowing, the music kept playing. But eventually the banks started to worry. They noticed too many people struggling to make payments, so they tightened lending. They stopped giving out loans so easily, and just like that, the bubble popped. Suddenly people weren't lining up to buy homes anymore. Prices stopped climbing. And when prices stopped climbing, homeowners who had borrowed too much realised they were underwater. They owed more than their house was worth. Panic set in. Loans started going bad. And then came the domino effect that brought the entire financial system to its knees in 2008. The crash was so severe that it was compared to the Great Depression. Millions lost jobs. Families lost everything. And it all started with banks tightening their lending standards. Fast forward to now. In the years after the pandemic, credit flowed again. Interest rates were low. Borrowing was easy, and people took advantage of it. They bought cars, houses, stocks, and businesses. Money was moving, and the economy looked unstoppable. But in 2024, the tide started to turn. Banks quietly began adjusting their policies. Borrowing became harder. Applications were denied more often. And here we are in 2025, and the trend hasn't slowed down. It's accelerating. Recent data shows that over 12% of banks reported tightening their lending standards this year, compared to just 5% a few months earlier. That might sound like a small number, but in the financial world, that's massive. It means banks are preparing for trouble. They're worried people won't be able to pay back the mountain of debt that has piled up over the last few years. So they're protecting themselves. And when banks protect themselves, the rest of us pay the price. Now here's where things get even stranger. At the same time, banks are pulling back. The Federal Reserve is hinting that it might start lowering interest rates. So on one side, the banks are tightening credit, making it harder to borrow. On the other side, the Fed is saying, let's make borrowing cheaper. It's like pressing the gas and the brake at the same time. Nobody knows how that's going to play out, but history tells us one thing. When lending gets tighter, the economy suffers. Imagine this in your own life. Let's say you've been living off your credit cards, spending freely, going out, traveling, buying gadgets. As long as the bank lets you swipe, life feels good. But suddenly, the bank cuts your limit in half. Now you can't spend the way you used to. You cancel trips, you skip dinners out, you hold off on buying that new phone. Multiply that situation by millions of families and businesses, and you can see how quickly the entire economy slows down. Imagine if all these people joined my free Telegram community with the link in the description and opened their own faceless YouTube channel. How much easier it would be to survive these down moments. That's why this moment is so critical. Because the last time we saw banks take this exact step, everything flipped. Not in a year, not in a decade, but almost immediately. And while nobody can say for sure if we're heading into another 2008-style collapse, the warning signs are flashing. People who pay attention will see them. People who don't may get caught off guard. This isn't about scaring you for no reason. It's about preparing you. Because if credit continues to tighten through 2025 and into 2026, there will be ripple effects. Businesses may lay off workers. Families may cut back spending. Investors may panic and pull money out of the markets. And every one of these moves feeds into the other, creating a cycle that can turn quickly from optimism to fear. At the same time, it's also true that with every downturn, opportunities appear. When banks get cautious, when markets panic, that's when some of the biggest fortunes are made, but only by those who saw the writing on the wall early, only by those who prepared while everyone else was still pretending nothing was wrong. Only the ones that join my free Telegram community right now will win. See, when the market collapses, people will still watch YouTube videos, especially faceless videos, so why don't start now by getting help from me? I'll give you my strategies on how I make all my channels explode, and to prove to you that it really works, just look at this channel, which is the most obvious proof. If you found value in this video, smash the subscribe and like button and let me know if you already knew about what's happening. And I'll see you soon in the Telegram community. I'll wait for you. Just a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for educational purposes only, and any results depend on your own decisions and actions.